Everyone takes extreme actions in their life at one point or another. However, some people take extreme actions on the regular. One person who possesses this characteristic is the 26th President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt. Now, I know that a lot of you may not know much or care much about Theodore Roosevelt, but I can inform you that he's done a lot to affect every single person here. I was first taught of Theodore Roosevelt in the 4th grade, and I've been studying him a lot ever since. Now, today I will inform you on 3 things that he's done to affect every single person here, which are the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906, the Panama Canal, and his conservation efforts. First, I will start off by informing you on the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. One thing that everyone in America can be thankful for is knowing that the food and drugs they buy are safe and regulated. This has not always been the case, however, but thankfully Theodore Roosevelt made it this way with his Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. Before the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906, there were no regulations on companies, and one industry that I studied a lot was the meatpacking industry, and they were completely out of control before the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. According to James Harvey Young, who received an MA and a PhD degree in history, Princeton University Press, 1989, quoted Upton Sinclair, who said, "There would be meat that had tumbled out on the floor in the dirt and sawdust, where the workers had tramped and spit uncounted billions of consumption germs. There would be meat stored in great piles in rooms, and the water from leaky roofs would drip over it, and thousands of rats would race about on it. It was too dark in these storage places to see well, but a man could run his hand over these piles of meat and sweep off handfuls of the dry dung of rats. These rats were nuisances, and the packers would put poisoned bread out for them. They would die, and then the rats, bread, and meat would go into the hoppers together." This gives a good picture of how most food and drug companies acted during this time. Due to this, people were buying meat that was diseased, decomposed, rotting, and sometimes even contained bits of human flesh in them. Now, drugs were also very unregulated at this time and often contained chemicals that were harmful to people and made outrageous claims as to what they could cure. Now, the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 put an end to all of this, and it was also a great foundation for other laws to be built upon it in the future. In the end, it was very successful, and the next time that you go and buy a food or drug, you can thank Theodore Roosevelt that you know that it's safe. Now I will inform you on the Panama Canal. Now, I'm sure a lot of people in here buy goods that are not locally sourced and have to be shipped here from other parts of the nation or world. Now, today we receive these in a relatively short time frame. However, this has not always been the case. Before the completion of the Panama Canal in 1913, ships would have to travel an estimated 8,000 nautical miles further to get from the East Coast to the West Coast or vice versa. Needless to say, this saved a huge amount of time for trade and travel. Now, the Panama Canal is considered to be one of the greatest engineering feats ever accomplished due to how difficult it was to make. The French actually tried years prior, but failed and had to stop due to the yellow fever killing off most of their workers. Now, Roosevelt was extremely determined to build the Panama Canal and made sure that the first order of business was to find out how to eradicate the yellow fever and malaria. Now, his scientists found out that it was coming from mosquitoes, which prior to this was unknown. And so in order to combat this, and according to journalist Andrew Curry, U.S. News and World Report 2003, hundreds of tons of chemicals and kerosene oil were applied to the cities and towns of the Isthmus in a concentrated fumigation campaign. Running water was made available in major settlements. Within a year and a half, the yellow fever had been wiped out. Now, Roosevelt wouldn't give up even when there were other setbacks, like men dying from dynamite explosions or landslides coming in and ruining the day's work. He would simply have a new crew come in and resume work. All these setbacks did add time to the completion of the Panama Canal, but it was eventually completed in 1913. Now, it took a fortune to make, but in the end was worth every single penny. Now I will inform you on my favorite of his actions, his conservation efforts. Now, I'm sure everyone in here has either been to a national park or heard of a national park. Whether you despise them or love them, you cannot dispute how beneficial they are to the environment and the country. They protect natural resources, generate power through hydro, wind, and geothermal. They protect biodiversity. They prevent natural disasters. They make money for the government. They produce jobs, and they allow people to explore nature. There are also many more beneficial things to natural parks, and these are all the reasons that Theodore Roosevelt set aside land for them. Now, according to Dr. Leroy Dorsey from Texas A&M University Press 2016, over the course of those 8 years, he established 5 national parks, including ones at Crater Lake in Oregon and Mesa Verde in Colorado, 4 big game preserves in places such as Oklahoma and Arizona, 51 bird refuges in over a dozen states and territories, almost 20 national monuments, including the Grand Canyon in Arizona, Mount Olympus in Washington, and the Devil's Tower in Wyoming, and created 150 national forests across millions of acres in the United States. Perhaps more important than those milestones, he changed attitudes about conservation and affirmed the federal government's authority over the environment. Now, this is an amazing accomplishment, and it has saved millions of animals' lives and has also gotten some animals off of the endangered list. Now, in conclusion, I have informed everyone here about how Theodore Roosevelt has affected all of us through his Pure Food and Drug Act in 1906, his Panama Canal, and his conservation efforts. So the next time that you hear the name Theodore Roosevelt, I hope that you too can inform others on how he has affected every single person here and spread a great man's legacy.